All right. Streaming now on Discovery Plus, Finding Bigfoot. The search continues. Yes, the team is back together, searching really all over the United States on the infamous Bigfoot. So, did they find anything? Well, let's bring in some of the experts now. One of the experts that's been hunting for quite some time. We have Cliff Barrickman joining us. Good morning.
Good morning to you. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, I got a chance to watch most of the special that's airing right now. Super exciting. I told you before we got started, my family super interested in Bigfoot. And I don't know if you come to Florida this time around, but certainly we have our own Bigfoot varieties here, we think, in Florida. But how'd you guys do this time around?
It was a very successful expedition. It was amazing. We uncovered great evidence. We uncovered footprint cast evidence, audio recordings, and even a photograph. And then on one of our night investigations, we got some very intriguing results. I don't want to give everything away, of course. So I want you to check it out. But man, it is definitely worth it. It's probably one of my favorite episodes we've ever filmed, and we've done like 100 of them. So.
Wow. All right. So tell me, because at the start of the pandemic last year, my family really my kids got involved. I have my Aunt Dee Dee is the one who taught us how different calls you can make and what to look for when you're looking for Bigfoot, taught my family this. And this was at the beginning of the pandemic when my kids really got interested. You hear about wildlife coming out more, because everyone was, not on the roads as much. I mean, did that change for you and your team? Because you guys shot all of this kind of in the midst of the pandemic as well.
Yeah. The pandemic, of course, poses a lot of challenges for everybody. And, TV productions are no exception. Luckily, our show, we are out in the wild, so we're not around crowds or anything like that. We just kind of have to be careful of each other. But, I think we were tested twice out on the road and twice before we went on the road. And get me out in the woods. That's all I ever asked for. Just get me out in the woods.
Well, obviously, Bigfoot is an introvert as well. I mean, was there any kind of, were more people, thinking they saw Bigfoot because of how everything, changed in the environment over the last year?
Well, certainly a lot more people are out in wild areas. And it's one thing for you to be safe at home in like downtown Tampa or wherever you happen to be, thinking that, oh, no, Bigfoots aren't real. But yeah, go out into the woods and wake up at 1 o'clock in the morning and sit outside in the dark. And you tell me the same thing, that there's no possibility Sasquatches are real. It just doesn't happen that way. So this pandemic has been good for some things. And I think part of that is getting people out of the cities into the wild areas to enjoy the public lands that we have available to us.
When did it change for you to say, you know what, I really think that they exist and it's going to be my mission, to find this and to find evidence?
Well, I grew up in the 1970s with those schlockumentaries, In Search of and Legend of Boggy Creek and all those terrible 70s things that I love so much. And so I've always had an interest, but it was when I was in college, actually, as a young man, I stumbled across a couple different books that were compilations of scientific journal articles about the cultural anthropologists were looking at the Sasquatch thing and saying, why is it that every native tribe in North America that lives in suitable habitat has a name for a giant hair-covered whatever outside in the woods? So how could that be unless these things are real animals? And of course, the physical anthropologists, they were kind of looking at the footprint cast evidence and saying, well, these markers, they probably associate with certain markers in the foot, like bone structure. And they started doing inferred morphology, like bone reconstructions. And over time, they realized, wait a minute, these bones are different than human feet. These aren't just expanded human feet. These are entirely different. And the differences they saw happened to be coincidentally an exact necessary redesign of a foot of that type to carry a mass of their size. And really, after a while, when you really start looking at the good evidence that has been collected, it's mind-boggling that they're not real. They are absolutely real. The evidence is there. It is internally consistent, and it is exactly what one would expect to find.
All right, my last question. Any tips for my family, my kids, as they continue to do their Bigfoot hunt here in Florida? Any tips
Absolutely.
when you conduct your own search?
Every expedition should start in the library. You should start gathering evidence that has been gathered before you. Read books by academics like Dr. Jeff Meldrum or Dr. John Bindernagel, or even Dr. John Napier, head of a Smithsonian Institute, like the primatology area. He's deceased now, but he wrote a book on Sasquatches that was very open to the subject. Every expedition should start in the library to equip you here for the expedition, and then go out in the woods and enjoy it as such, because Bigfoots are very rare animals and they rarely show up. But if you go to the woods for another reason, like hiking or camping or fishing, you'll never walk away with a failed expedition.
All right, Cliff, so much fun talking with you. Thank you so much. I'm glad the team is back together again, the show airing right now on Discovery Plus.
Thank you for having me, and keep it squatchy.